In the cosmic tapestry where destiny weaves infinite possibilities, there exists a moment on Mustafar where mercy triumphed over duty. When Obi-Wan Kenobi stood over Anakin Skywalker's burning body, he heard a whisper through the Force that changed everything. Instead of walking away, he stayed. Instead of letting his apprentice die, he chose to save him. This is the galaxy that choice created, where neither master nor student could escape the flames of their past. The heat hit first. Always the heat. Waves of it rolled against the obsidian platform like living things, carrying the stench of sulfur and burning plasteel. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood at the lava river's edge, his chest heaving, his robes scorched and torn. His lightsaber hung loosely in his trembling hand, still humming with residual energy from the duel that had just shattered his world. Before him, what remained of Anakin Skywalker was still burning. The duel was over. The galaxy's brightest star had fallen, and the man who had once been his brother lay broken on the black sand, flames consuming his severed limbs. 3 of them, both legs, 1 arm, gone. Obi-Wan should have left. Every fiber of his Jedi training screamed at him to walk away, to mourn later, to focus on what came next. Palpatine would come. The Empire was rising. The twins needed protection. But he couldn't move. Goodbye, old friend. He gathered Padme's unconscious form and began walking toward the landing platform. Each step felt like wading through quickreed. Behind him, Anakin's screams echoed across Mustafar's hellscape. Then, impossibly, cutting through the rage and fire, a whisper touched his mind through the Force. Small, broken, desperate. The voice of the 9-year-old boy he'd met on Tatooine. Master, please. Qui-Gon, if you're out there, I hope you know what I'm doing, because I certainly don't. Obi-Wan laid Padme on the ship's boarding ramp, programmed the autopilot for Polis Massa, and watched it lift into Mustafar's ash-choked sky. Then he turned back toward the flames, toward the impossible choice that would define the next 2 decades. He was a Jedi. He saved lives, even when those lives had destroyed everything he loved. Finding Anakin again wasn't difficult. The boy had always burned bright in the Force. Obi-Wan fought through collapsing machinery and rivers of molten rock until he found what remained of his former Padawan. Anakin had dragged himself nearly 10 meters from where Obi-Wan had left him, leaving a trail of blood and char across the Durasteel, pulling his broken body forward with his remaining arm, toward nothing, toward nowhere, stubborn to the very end. The mining facility Obi-Wan discovered was 3 kilometers deeper into Mustafar's industrial sector, abandoned for decades but still functional. Geothermal taps powered the dormant machinery. Water recyclers worked, producing liquid that tasted like metal and regret. Food stores remained, long expired but sealed in vacuum containers. It would have been enough for what came next. I'm getting you out of here. Don't you dare die on me. Should have left me. Obi-Wan spent the next 3 days just keeping Anakin alive. The injuries were catastrophic, burns covering most of his body, seared lungs rasping with each breath, infected stumps where his limbs had been. Obi-Wan had been a general, not a healer, but desperation made him creative. He wrapped Anakin in the Force like a bandage, holding failing organs together, keeping his heart beating when it wanted to stop. You don't get to quit, not after everything, not like this. On the 4th day, Anakin opened his eyes. Yellow, still corrupted, still Sith, but alive. Obi-Wan had fashioned a crude respirator from mining equipment, hissing and wheezing with each breath, but functional. A prototype of something darker. They began their uneasy existence, master and student, jailer and prisoner, 2 men haunted by the same flames. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We thank you all for your continued support. The weeks became months in the perpetual twilight of Mustafar. Time moved differently here. The lava flows were eternal, the heat constant, the sky never changing from its gray-orange pall. Obi-Wan grew a beard and let it grow wild. Anakin remained in his makeshift medical bay, healing slowly in body but fracturing further in mind. He was comatose for weeks at a time, his breathing shallow, his screams echoing through the Force even in unconsciousness. When Anakin finally regained full consciousness, the reality of what he'd become crashed down like a tidal wave. He tried to rise and discovered he had nothing to rise with. The stumps where 3 limbs had been were wrapped in bandages and crude metal fittings. His remaining hand clawed at the edges of the medical slab. You're an idiot. Should have killed me. Would have been mercy. Obi-Wan checked the respirator, adjusting the flow. The darkness of Mustafar was beginning to whisper to both of them, remnants of something ancient beneath the lava rivers. She gave birth to twins before she died. A boy and a girl. They're safe. The sound Anakin made wasn't quite human. Grief, rage, and self-loathing mixed into something that transcended simple emotion. He hallucinated Padme's death constantly, seeing her face in the heat shimmer, hearing her voice in the grinding machinery. Through the Force, he could still feel Palpatine's presence, distant but searching, wondering what had happened to his prized apprentice. Their names? They didn't speak much after that. What was there to say? Anakin had slaughtered children. Obi-Wan had left him to burn, then saved him for reasons he still didn't fully understand. Both had betrayed everything they'd sworn to protect. Words felt inadequate compared to the weight of those sins. In the second year of their exile, the Force trembled with approaching danger. Palpatine had sensed something, a disturbance emanating from Mustafar that he couldn't ignore. He dispatched 3 Inquisitors to investigate, former Jedi twisted into hunters of their own kind. Their shuttles descended through the ash-choked atmosphere like predatory birds seeking carrion. Obi-Wan felt them coming hours before they arrived. The facility had minimal defenses, and Anakin was still learning to move on the crude prosthetic legs Obi-Wan had constructed from mining servos and durasteel plating. They were slow, painful, but functional enough for survival, not for combat. Stay hidden. If they sense you, if they report back to Palpatine that you're alive. I'm not hiding from his lapdogs. The Inquisitors moved through the facility with predatory confidence, their double-bladed sabers casting red light across the walls. They found Obi-Wan in the main chamber, and the eldest, a Padawan who'd once served in the temple, recognized him immediately. Master Kenobi, the Emperor will be pleased. The duel that followed was brutal and desperate. Obi-Wan's Form 3 kept him alive, but 3 against 1 was overwhelming odds. He was driven back, step by step, toward the deeper tunnels. Then Anakin appeared, moving awkwardly on his prosthetics, but wielding the Force with terrible precision. In a fit of rage that surprised them both, he killed one Inquisitor outright, crushing his windpipe with a gesture. The remaining 2 fled, but Obi-Wan hunted them down before they could report. It was the first time he'd killed in cold blood since becoming a Jedi. The first of many compromises he'd make in the years to come. In the 3rd year, Obi-Wan's exploration of the facility led him to a discovery that changed everything. Behind a collapsed support wall, hidden for centuries, was a tunnel entrance radiating darkness like heat from a furnace. This wasn't the rage darkness of the Sith. This was older, colder, more patient. The kind of darkness that waited and watched and planned. The tunnel wound down nearly half a kilometer, walls growing steadily blacker until it opened into a chamber carved from obsidian. Every surface was polished to a mirror shine, reflecting distorted images of anyone who entered. In the center stood a pillar of frozen magma, lava that had cooled in mid-leap, creating a twisted spire reaching toward the ceiling. Sith runes covered the walls in languages even Obi-Wan's exclusive education couldn't decipher. This is why Palpatine chose this place, why Anakin fell here. He felt it then. A tension. Something ancient and malevolent focusing on him like a predator spotting prey. The temperature dropped despite being kilometers deep in a volcanic world. The air grew thick enough to choke on. Jedi, it has been so long. I don't suppose you're friendly. The laughter that echoed through the Force made his bones ache. He ran, sealing the tunnel entrance with every heavy object available, but the damage was done. The shrine was awake now, and both of them could feel its hungry attention pressing against their minds like a physical weight. Obi-Wan had inadvertently awakened something that should have remained buried. An echo of ancient Sith will that predated even the Republic. Years 4 and 5 passed in a strange equilibrium. Anakin healed physically, his body adapting to the prosthetics, his lungs adjusting to the permanent respirator fused to what remained of his face. But the shrine called to him constantly, whispering promises of power and understanding. He grew obsessed with it, meditating for hours, facing the sealed tunnel entrance, communing with something Obi-Wan couldn't see. Obi-Wan forbade him from approaching the shrine directly, but their relationship had never been built on obedience. Anakin had always pushed boundaries, always sought answers regardless of the cost. That tendency hadn't died with his body on the volcanic shore. If anything, his suffering had intensified it. I need to understand what I am, what's left. The shrine knows. That thing will consume you. Haven't you given enough to darkness? One night, while Obi-Wan meditated, Anakin removed the barriers. He descended into the shrine alone, dragging his mechanical body down the tunnel with grim determination. The obsidian chamber welcomed him like a long-lost son. When his remaining hand touched the frozen magma pillar, the Force exploded. I see it! All of it! Every choice I didn't make! The shrine showed him everything, every path he could have taken, every moment where he could have chosen differently. He saw himself as a true Jedi Master, training Padawan at the temple. He saw himself walking away from Palpatine's manipulations. He saw himself saving Padme through trust instead of fear. The visions were more painful than any physical wound. When Obi-Wan finally found him hours later, Anakin lay before the pillar, weeping. Not yellow eyes anymore, not blue either. Something in between. Gray, like ash. By year 6, they'd settled into a routine that resembled life, if not quite normalcy. Obi-Wan had become a hermit of fire, caring for the broken man who was once Anakin Skywalker, practicing forms in the heat-warped corridors, meditating on the nature of mercy and failure. The galaxy outside moved on without them. The Empire tightened its grip, the Jedi Order became legendary, and 2 children grew up never knowing their father. Through meditation and quiet communion with the Force, Obi-Wan began hearing Qui-Gon's voice. Not clearly, not the way others had described Force ghosts, but enough. Enough to learn techniques his old master had discovered after death. He learned to let go, to accept failure without being consumed by it, to find peace in the present moment rather than dwelling on past mistakes. The living Force flows through all things, Obi-Wan. Even here. Even him. Is this what you would have done, Master? Saved him after everything? Anakin spent his days exploring the shrine's influence, learning to commune with its darkness without being consumed. He was walking a tightrope between light and shadow, becoming something the Jedi would have called heretical and Sith would have called weak. He forged armor from scavenged materials, durasteel plates welded into something that was part ancient Sith design, part mining equipment, part desperate improvisation. Not Jedi, not Sith, just broken. But broken doesn't mean useless. They rarely spoke about the past or the future. The present was difficult enough, surviving the heat, maintaining their sanity, managing the shrine's constant psychic pressure. But in small moments, they found something resembling peace, or at least acceptance of their shared damnation. In year 7, Anakin emerged from 3 days of meditation in the shrine wearing something that made Obi-Wan's blood run cold. He'd constructed armor, true armor, incorporating elements from the shrine itself. Not Palpatine's sleek black shell of imprisonment, but something hybrid and terrible. Ancient Sith aesthetics mixed with industrial mining equipment, all held together with plates forged in the facility's thermal furnaces. The respirator was permanent now, no longer removable, fused to his face through a combination of scar tissue and desperate engineering. His mechanical legs were reinforced, his remaining arm covered in durasteel plating. He'd even salvaged a red-bladed lightsaber from the shrine, not built, but found, as if it had been waiting for him. I am not the Vader that Palpatine would have created. I am what remains when everything burns away. What have you become? The shrine had bonded with him somehow, its dark side energies sustaining his damaged body in ways that should have been impossible. Mustafar itself was keeping him alive now, feeding him through the Force nexus beneath their feet. He'd become part of the planet's darkness, a living extension of the Sith Temple's will. A cautionary tale, a warning, something that shouldn't exist but does anyway. But there was something else in his eyes now, not the yellow corruption of the Sith, not the blue clarity of the Jedi, but the gray of ashes. Of things burned down and cooled, of endings and beginnings mixed together. He'd walked through the shrine's visions and came out the other side changed in ways neither of them fully understood. Obi-Wan realized that Anakin had bonded with the shrine's energy. The lava itself sustained his existence. Mustafar had become his prison and his power source, a symbiosis that would last as long as the planet burned. The Force screamed a warning in early year 8. Obi-Wan felt it first, ships descending through Mustafar's atmosphere like ice water down his spine. 3 Star Destroyers, far too much firepower for routine patrol. They'd been found. After nearly 8 years of hiding, of hoping, of pretending they could exist in this hell together indefinitely, it was over. Palpatine. He's come personally. He's known for years something survived here. They prepared as best they could. Sealed doors, set traps, prepared fallback positions. But the old mining facility wasn't built for defense against the Empire. When Palpatine finally entered their central chamber, he came alone, confident in his power. He'd aged since Obi-Wan had last seen him, or perhaps stopped pretending to be anything other than what he was, corrupted flesh wrapped around malevolent will. Skywalker, you lived! And Kenobi, still playing hero. Have you enjoyed your years of failure? Better than your brand of delusion, Chancellor. At least mine comes with a conscience. What followed wasn't really a duel. It was a cataclysm. 3 Force users, each powerful beyond measure, unleashed everything they had in a space barely large enough to contain it. Palpatine's lightning carved through metal like paper. Obi-Wan's defensive Form 3 deflected it back with surgical precision. Anakin's raw, terrible power, 8 years of meditation in a Sith shrine, 8 years of pain converted to strength, tore through both of them. You cannot win! I am the Empire! You are nothing! The facility began collapsing. Support beams buckled under the Force onslaught. Lava pipes ruptured, sending molten rock flooding through lower levels. They fought across the complex and out onto Mustafar's surface, trading blows that would have killed lesser beings instantly. The 3 of them tumbled across obsidian platforms, and beneath their feet, something fundamental shifted. The shrine, dormant for millennia, awakened by Obi-Wan, activated by Anakin, and now destabilized by Palpatine's corrupt presence, finally reached critical mass. The frozen magma pillar deep below erupted, sending a geyser of raw darkside energy surging upward through the facility's remains. The ground began collapsing inward, a massive sinkhole forming that threatened to swallow everything within a kilometer radius. Palpatine, sensing mortal danger for perhaps the first time in decades, disengaged and fled toward his shuttle. His last words echoed through the Force with cruel finality. "You are both doomed. This planet is your grave, and the galaxy will never know you existed." The shuttle lifted off just as the ground gave way completely. Obi-Wan fell, tumbling into darkness. He reached for Anakin through the Force, felt his former Padawan grab him with mechanical strength, and then they were both sliding down through collapsing tunnels toward the shrine's heart. They landed hard in the obsidian chamber. The pillar was gone, replaced by a swirling vortex of raw Force energy. Light and dark mixed together, canceling each other out into something that was both and neither. "Can't hold it. If this energy spreads, Mustafar burns everyone. This ends here. Then we leave. Now. Together." Anakin was on his knees, using every ounce of his power to contain the implosion. His armor was cracking, his respirator failing, but he held firm. The walls were collapsing around them. The way out was sealing second by second. "Tell Luke his father died trying to do one good thing. Tell him I was a Jedi once. Before all this." Obi-Wan wanted to argue, to refuse, to stay and die together, but Anakin's eyes were clear now. Truly clear for the first time since Mustafar's original duel. This was his choice, freely made, the first truly selfless act since his fall. Obi-Wan ran, tears streaming, pulling himself up through rubble and out onto the surface. Behind him, the entire complex imploded into the shrine's void. The Force shockwave hit Obi-Wan like a physical blow, and then there was silence. When he looked back, there was nothing but a smoking crater where the facility had stood. No body, no shrine, just darkness. No Anakin, just ash and cooling magma, and the oppressive emptiness where a powerful Force presence had been. Obi-Wan stayed on Mustafar for 3 days more, searching for ruins, hoping against hope. But the Force was clear. Anakin Skywalker was truly gone this time. Not fallen to darkness, not lost to corruption, but gone. Returned to the Force, or bound forever to Mustafar's molten core. The distinction hardly mattered. May the Force be with you, old friend. Thank you for showing me that redemption isn't about surviving, it's about choosing. He left Mustafar quietly, stole a transport from Imperial wreckage, and disappeared into the Outer Rim. He learned of Luke's existence through patient observation and distant communion with Qui-Gon's spirit. The boy was on Tatooine with Owen Lars, growing up far from the Empire's notice. Obi-Wan settled nearby, watching from the shadows, living truly as a ghost. He never contacted Yoda, never reached out to surviving Jedi, never tried to reform what was broken. Instead, he meditated on Mustafar's lessons, that mercy could be both salvation and curse, that isolation could forge understanding, that sometimes the greatest act of love was letting go. He aged in the desert heat, his beard growing white, his body growing lean, waiting for the day when destiny would call him back. Years passed. The Empire solidified its grip, the rebellion formed in secret, and on Tatooine, a young moisture farmer named Luke Skywalker dreamed of adventure beyond the dual sunsets, never knowing his father had died in fire to save a galaxy that would never know his name. 19 years after Mustafar's final flames, Obi-Wan sat in his simple hut watching the twin suns sit over Tatooine's endless dunes. He'd watched them set thousands of times, but tonight felt different. The Force was moving. Destiny was stirring. A droid beeped outside his door. Then another. He stood, wrapped his weathered cloak around his shoulders, and stepped into the evening air. There was Luke Skywalker, 19 years old, full of questions, full of potential, full of hope. Anakin's son, untouched by his father's corruption, inheriting only the light. The Force had brought Obi-Wan full circle, from Mustafar's fire to Tatooine's sand, from failure to redemption, from darkness to light. "Hello there. Come inside, young Luke. We have much to discuss." "Ben, I need your help. There's this message from a princess, and..." This was the moment. The promise he'd made in that collapsing shrine could finally be fulfilled. He could tell Luke about Anakin, not the monster, not Vader, but the Jedi who'd fallen and found redemption in fire. The truth, the whole truth. "Your father was a Jedi Knight, and a good friend. Come, let me tell you about him." But first, there was the small matter of stormtroopers, droids, and an old smuggler who'd owed him a favor. Ben Kenobi smiled wider as R2-D2's hologram flickered to life, showing a young woman's desperate plea. After 19 years of waiting, watching, and remembering, it felt good to have a purpose again. The Force had given him a second chance, not to change the past, but to shape the future. Luke would face darkness, just as his father had, but this time there would be a teacher who understood mercy's true cost, who knew that redemption wasn't about erasing mistakes, but learning from them. Together, they would walk a path neither Jedi nor Sith had imagined. It felt good to be home. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.